Good morning, everyone. How y'all doing? Happy Saturday. It's Saturday here in DC. It's pretty warm outside, but it's awesome to be here with you all and have you here for some fun today. It's fantastic. Hope you're all having a fantastic weekend so far. I'm gonna change some music here to a bit different. Nice. Well, it is Saturday and we have stuff we're gonna do today for sure. We had a poll out last night about what to do today and what to do next. And the consensus was SQL Server, despite going up against DynamoDB, honestly, which I thought would have more interest than it actually did. So that was really interesting. But that is what it is today, and I'm really excited that you're all here and that we will be looking into this today. So hopefully you are as excited as I am, because we got some fun today. Let's see if change that a bit. And let me know if the music is too loud for you and you can't hear me, or if it's too faint then it doesn't make it any sense, and we'll go ahead and adjust it for you. But yeah. So we did have a little poll yesterday, as I mentioned, and I actually looked into both of these different tools right now, both DynamoDB and the SQL Server. And I was kind of hoping that DynamoDB would win, so we can look at that. Because I haven't worked too much with the ALBS, especially not with the nested SDK. But and it was definitely leading in the beginning. He had the first few, like 2-3 votes. But SQL Server came up strong and quickly surpassed it. And as you can see here, the final result is on the screen here. So that makes total sense, I guess. We'll probably have more people wanting to use SQL Server. So that's probably what we'll be focusing on today. And hopefully, I don't think it's going to be too much of a hassle to get that working, honestly. It should be pretty straightforward. But how's everyone's weekend so far? Are you enjoying it? What's the weather like? I know that the weather in Sweden and Europe is pretty warm right now. Warmer than usual. We had Swedish Midsummer yesterday, which is like one of the biggest holidays of the year, I guess, where everyone is outside and eats a lot of good food and drinks and enjoy their life. Unfortunately, I'm in the US right now, so I couldn't really do that here. No one to celebrate it with. But I got some great pictures from friends and family there and how they celebrated it. So that was some really fun stuff. But now we have a longer weekend here. Well, I hope you're all right. I'm gonna get started with what I wanted to do today. If you have any questions throughout the stream, if you want me to change tracks, change the music, think something is funny, I got a question, just want to chat, whatever it is, just post it in the chat. I'll make sure to monitor it. I'll make sure that we have an engaging session today, and hopefully you will have as fun as I will, because I will have tons of fun. I always do. Good morning. How's it going, you two? Good to have you on the stream. Did you vote in the poll this morning or yesterday night on what to do today? We had a poll up about your SQL Server or DynamoDB. SQL Server won, so that's what we're gonna do. And oh yeah, cool, yeah. So actually, I'm hoping that we may at least get started with SQL Server and get it kind of out of the way quickly, and then maybe we'll start with the DynamoDB today. It depends on the timing here. I don't expect SQL Server to take too long, so hopefully we can do both. But yeah, both should be cool. And for any new viewers here today, I added a link here in the middle to the repo we're working on. So github.com/aslotte/mlops.net. And that's the repo we're working on. So if you have any interest in contributing or checking out what we're doing, just go to that link and it will tell you everything you need to know. Or you can sync up with, I think, most people on the stream, honestly, that has been part of this before. Alright, enough talking. No picture of me, great. So, let's get started here. So, this week, what we've done here a bit is that we have got a couple of things done. We added the GitHub commit link between the runs and the code, which is great for tracking of what kind of caused the model to be better than before. And what AJ is currently doing, and I have to review his PR, is the ability to log the confusion matrix, which is going to be great. So For those who doesn't know, the confusion matrix is a metric for classifiers, like binary classifiers and multi-class classifiers. And it allows you to understand how the model thinks. So it allows you to understand of like how it confuses different classes that it's trying to predict. For example, if it's fraud, not fraud, you will see like how many it actually guessed wrong and how many it guessed right. So tracking that would be really cool, because then we can display that to the user, probably in a UI and a client in the future. And I know that Daniel, who may or may not be on this stream today, he's created a NuGet package already to display that in HTML form, like a heat map, or so, if you will. So we may actually just try to use his NuGet package for that, honestly, or we may create our own UI for it. But I think it'd be really cool for the user to be able to train a model and then see that in the UI. So definitely review AJ's PR if you haven't already. It's some cool stuff. There are also some new things added here, so if you want to get started, grab an issue, help out. We are more than welcoming anyone to contribute. I'm doing my best to support any questions that arise, so if you have a question, post it on the issue, and I'll make sure to answer it. But today, we are going to look at support for SQL Server. So we're going to add a completely new package here today that mimics the APIs and the interfaces we have to support SQL Server. And the reason why we support that is because we want to support storing metadata about the model in SQL Server. So, for example, all the metrics, all the runs, all those kind of data stuff. And last week, or this week I guess on Tuesday, we separated the model repository from the metadata store, meaning that you can now store something like your models locally, but the metadata in Azure, for example. So I can see that you maybe want to store your metadata in SQL Server and your model repository either in blob storage or the local file share. And that's completely possible for you to do now, after we've done this, of course. But okay, enough talking, more fun, right? So what we're going to do today here is kind of just mimic SQLite here. So Daniel created this library called SQLite, which supports SQLite. And believe it or not, it's pretty similar what we're going to do for SQL Server. We're going to use Entity Framework Core as our ORM to connect to the database. We're going to use similar logic to fetch our entities. Honestly, it should be pretty the same, exactly the same. The only difference here is that we want to be able to, what's the word for it? We want to be able to supply a connection string when you create this extension. So when we say, for example, use SQL Server as a backing store, you probably want to provide either a local database string or a remote database string. And SQLite, you don't really care because it's always going to be local. Because Daniel told me. Alright, so without further ado, we're going to start copying some over, but we'll start by creating a new project here. New project. And it's going to be a class library of type C#. Actually, that's standard, should be fine. And Visual Basic, we don't want that, so let's see, why don't I have... Here we go, that's where it is. So we have C# class library for that standard, that should be perfect. Let's add that, and we're going to call this mlops.net SQL Server and spell the ops properly. Like that. Okay, it looks like we are adhering to the naming standards we have already, so we'll go ahead and create that. Perfect. Alright, so when it comes to this, what I'm going to do to make it simple here is I'm going to look at the SQLite invitation and copy over most things. The only thing I will want to do here is that we want to install Entity Framework Core, EF Core here, and probably all these things too, honestly. Yeah, so I'm gonna go and just make sure we get all these dependencies here, because we want all these dependencies here as well. So I will do that and just get the whole thing here. And that's why I'm hoping we'll be able to do both, because there should be a lot of copy-paste to get this functioning. Oh. Let's see, what else do we usually have here? We can do those things. Definitely want dependencies to the main package, because that's going to be something we need, so that's perfect. And what else do we need? Treat errors warnings, yes. Yep, actually we all need all of this stuff here. All of this is great stuff. We're only going to change one thing here with the tags. Otherwise we want the same product structure as the other product. The only thing we want to change here is the package description. We want to make sure we add a better description here. So MLOps SQL Server storage provider. I want capital here. And we'll call this SQL Server as a tag. And the really cool thing here is that I want to mention as well is that we're treating warnings as errors. So anytime we have a compiler warning, it's going to be a compiler error. And that's something I always wanted to do. But if you jump into something that has been around for a couple of years, it's impossible to do usually, because you have thousands of warnings. And to keep them low and get into zero and actually start this is like really difficult. So starting from scratch allows you to do what you want. So we are doing that, enforcing this. And I've already run into multiple times, it's like it doesn't compile. I'm like, what is wrong? I don't have an error, but I do have a warning. And it catches me all the time. So I am super happy about that. So we're going to keep enforcing that on our new product. Alright, so with that, what we can do is copy over all of this stuff here, honestly. And then rename namespaces. And do some tweaking for our purposes here. There we go. Because it's going to be very similar as SQLite, I think. The only thing we want to do here is change the namespaces to make sure that that makes sense. Because otherwise we want to be treated the same. Because it's both relational database and it is also using EF Core. So welcome people who joined the stream. I see we're a couple more people on the stream so far. How are you all doing? As mentioned on Twitter and in the stream title, we are going to add support for SQL Server this morning for this library. That's going to be great. And it's going to be a copy-paste thing right now. And then if we have time, we'll go in and look at DynamoDB as well. But anyone who sticks around, we'll see. Has anyone joined into the Live Coders conference that's currently ongoing? The one that Jeff Fritz organizes. Seems like there's tons of awesome speakers there. Sir. Yep, I'm gonna make a unit test at least for this implementation. We have to think about integration tests because it's not. We have to. It would be more difficult to install like SQL Server on our Ubuntu machines. How's it going? Good to have you on the stream. But we definitely add. We're going to add some. We're going to add some unit tests for sure. That's something we want. We're going to rename this one real quick here. SQL Server metadata store. Things are good here, by the way. We are staying busy. Okay. SQL Server. So what should we call the DB context? For SQLite, it makes sense it's called local DB context because that's the only thing we offer really. But for SQL Server, it's different. So should we call it like something like that? ML. Yes. Thank you for people sponsoring me. Actually, that's a good reminder. Thank you to those who sponsor me on GitHub right now. We have John Wood, who I co-organized the virtual MLAT conference, sponsoring me right now. And we got Davi from Brazil, I think, and we got Jerne from Australia, and we got Haiping as well from the US. So thank you all for being my GitHub sponsors if you're on the stream today. Appreciate it very much. It's a great way to make it sustainable to be an open source contributor for sure. So I'm going to rename this to MLOps DB context, because I think that makes more sense when it's not local. I think that makes sense, yeah. Alright, so we have very similar logic here. Our entities look the same as SQLite. The experiment looks the same. We don't need to worry about this really. We have our hyperparameters, it's all good. And our run. And we have those not mapped attributes as a SQLite because we don't want to map them right now. The only thing here that's different is that instead of using SQLite here for entity framework, we need to build up our entity framework using SQL Server. And instead of passing in a local connection string, we need to be able to supply that by a user here. So the first thing to look at is this. So SQL Server metadata store. We need to be able to pass in a connection string here. So that's number one here, is that we need a constructor, CTOR, for this specifically. Wow, that's great. That's amazing. Congratulations. So we'll pass in a connection string here, and we'll store this in a connection string locally in this entity. Generate field. Okay. So by doing that, we can then pass it into our context here all the time. So we need to be able to pass it into our context. So let's look at that. And we need one right here, right? So connection string. Ooh. Like that. So by doing that, on configure here, instead of passing in just the local DB connection string right here, we can then pass in the connection string that we are being provided, honestly, by the user. And we'll change use SQLite here to use SQL Server instead. And for those who are not familiar with EF Core here, you use this DB context options builder to kind of construct your ORM here. And you have tons of different options here. And in our case, we probably won't have use SQL Server because I copied over all the projects and it doesn't include SQL Server as a package here. So that was my fault. That's why you shouldn't copy paste all the time, right? You have too much crap. So you see here, we need to change this. And we need to change these things here. So I'm going to remove these package references and look at what we need instead here. Yeah, don't try this at home. Is that what you should say? I'm always against copy pasting, but in this case I thought it made sense, but apparently not. So entity framework core, we'll go in browse here, and it should be SQL Server, I think it's called, the specific package that we need. Yep, there it is. So this one should be able to give us access to the SQL Server builder here. And I like that a lot of these open source projects, even Microsoft now as well, is using much more of the building pattern here to chain things together, just like we are doing with our MLOps builder, to create an instance that's configured for your use case here. Alright, so we installed that package here, you see, SQL Server, and we have the tools package here, and the tools package is used for migrations. So if we do migrations, we need a tools package, and then we have the base package here that this one depends on. So we are pretty good here, got everything we need. So we should now be able to have use SQL Server here as an option. We do. And we will go ahead and also pass in the connection string here. I think that's possible. Okay. Perfect. And I think we're missing something. No, we're not. Okay, good. Yeah, exactly. It needs an empty constructor, and right now we're not going to do migrations, so we should probably think about that actually. That's an issue we have currently with SQLite as well, is that when we change the database schema, we have to migrate our schema, right? And right now we're not doing any support for that. We are still in the early phases where our schema is very fluid and changes rapidly. So the option there is just to drop the database completely and then recreate it, which is not what we want to do in production. But for now, we're going to just pretend that our schema is static. That actually is a really good issue. Thank you, Sean. I like that. Let's add as an issue, because otherwise I'll forget about it. So we need to add ability to... And welcome to the stream, by the way. Glad to have you. Migrate SQLite schema. I wonder if I actually have an issue for it now when I think about it. Yep, there we go. We have an issue for it. Let me edit it and add it for SQL Server too. Okay. Thank you for the reminder. Alright, back to the code. So, this builder here, we can keep chaining things together if you wanted to, and I wonder if it makes sense to do something else here as well. Like we could do like use proxies for lazy loading, but we may also just want to do it as it is right now. Okay, I think we're good right now for that. I'm trying to think of like one cool thing we can do here is if we actually start mocking this way later and injecting it instead, what we could do is we can use the memory cache instead for our integration test. That'd be kind of fun to try actually. Let's get this ready first and appear open, and then if we want to do that, that's something we want to do probably. Because right now it's pretty hard coded. Alright, so let's see if this builds. Okay, so we need to pass in the connection string here that we've been supplied by the user. Y object, okay, that's another one, string. Let's get that working. But otherwise it should be the same behavior as SQLite, so we shouldn't be able to do anything here. Okay. So let's see if this builds now. Oh, it doesn't build for sure because I missed a place. I think it should build by now. Let's do rebuild. Alright, there we are, okay. So we need to pass in a connection string here as well. And that's going to be the final piece of the puzzle. And since we have treat warnings as errors, you see that we are missing the comment here as well. So we need to make sure that that's added. So add missing parameter nodes here. And that should be enough. We don't need to, that's kind of self-explanatory, I think. Okay, let's build that. And again, for any newcomers to the stream, we the link to repo is that way. It's right there, github.com, mlops.net. If you want to follow along there and check out what we're doing, that's where you will find it. Alright, so we have that package now. Now what we want to do is we want to add tests for it as well. So we need to add another of these projects here. Yeah, it's something that you always want to do, right? But you never are allowed to do on like a real project because it's too late. But not for us, never too late for us. Alright, so we're gonna add a unit test project here. And definitely not the right framework. Okay. Yeah, well now you know. It's definitely something that I always wanted to do. Okay, on that core. And just never had a chance of doing because you always join too late. And it's something that I at least always try to get to at some point. But it's like it's a battle you will never win. Because there's always going to be things added and there's reasons for it, and then you put it in a backlog and someone says they will do it in the future and then never do it, and it never works out. Alright, SQL Server tests. Okay. So we had to add a test project for this, and again, just like for SQLite, we can actually copy over the test here for now and get them changed a bit. Because you only really need the MLOps builder extension test right now for this. And we need to add more tests for the other stuff. And let's think about how we want to do that as well a bit later. Thank you for the follow. Ooh, did I? Ooh, thank you. Good catch, Sean. And Nexify, thank you. You made my 90th follower, by the way. Thank you for that. I like equal numbers here. Okay. Cool. Alright, that broke everything. Why? Oh, okay. It's because we don't have a reference to the right product, that's why. Right. We need a reference here, and we're going to steal this one right here for now. Like this, and it's going to be a SQL Server product. Let's try to build that again. It may still break, that's okay. Do we need another one? Okay, no, that's fine. That's working. Okay, we need a mock installed as well. We don't have mock installed. What else do we need here? I don't think I needed IO abstraction helpers before, so that's fine. Such upbeat music here. Gets you waking up, Blitz, for sure. Fluent assertions, okay. Let's get you as well. So Nexify, where are you from? US or Europe? Asia? Where are you calling in from? Okay, this is good. Last thing we want to do is this one. We don't want to do that here. Okay. Alright, so now we need to do tests here. Perfect. So now we have reasonable build errors. What we want to do now is add a connection string, passing that into use SQLite here. So instead of SQLite, we're going to use SQL Server because it's a copy paste thing, and we will go ahead and rename all these to use SQL Server. So SQL Server. Done. And we'll have to pass in a connection string here to get that working properly. Let's see if that breaks anything, but that should be fine. And this should be SQL Server metadata store that we're expecting. So this is just checking that when we construct this mlops context that the end consumer will use, everything looks as expected here. That's all we're doing right here. So we're making sure that our metadata store is properly set up here in both the evaluation catalog as well as the training catalog and other places. That's just like some boilerplate tests here, but they are useful to make sure we didn't miss anything. Okay, let's see if that builds and those tests run. They build and then they run. Okay, let's see the run. And then we have to really think of some other stuff here while we do this. Let's see if they run. Looks like they are running, to me at least. Let's run all these tests here, honestly. We may as well, to make sure things work. I'm currently exploring Entity Framework 6.4 migration to EF Core at my current client, and it's a headache. Let's just say that when you have like 500 entity maps and tons of old legacy code and old implementations and use of Entity Framework, it's definitely a tough migration. They changed the API so much, and some features that don't exist anymore, and you have to think about how you want to proceed there. Come on. Why not running? Okay, I think that passes. Not sure why it doesn't run. Alright, so we have a test project here. Not as much as I want to, but I do want to open a PR for this. And then I want to look at this a bit more further with you. I want to test this using our review product. And I want to do some other stuff as well. Yeah, Dapper is awesome. I think it's a really cool tool. I think it's... we write a little bit too much custom code maybe if we would do it for this project I'm currently working on. But definitely been something I've been thinking about. I definitely liked it when I've seen it and used it. Okay, where's the issue here? SQL Server, come on. Yeah, EF still being maintained, but we want things like so we have a lot of functional tests running that are really long and slow, and we want the use of the memory cache mostly. And yeah, you can definitely use that from other tools if you wanted to, but it's just more useful for EF Core. It's also, I mean, end of life on the .NET framework at some point, and I think it's in the fall. EF Entity Framework is compiled from the standard, so that's all good. But any new features will be added to EF Core, not Entity Framework. So we do need to migrate at some point, and I think the earlier we do that, the better. And we're currently migrating the whole application from the .NET Framework 6.4.7.2 to the .NET Core, and I feel like it makes sense to do that as part of that migration, if possible. But that's definitely up for discussion, right? 103. It may be that it's not worth the effort, because it's definitely a risk change. Okay. Let's see to make sure we have everything we want here. Okay, I think we got all the things for this PR. Commit that, push that, open up a PR. And then we will look at some other stuff here. Let's get a PR open for this. I like the new UI, by the way, in GitHub here, if you see that. Okay. 3. Add a needs review label here, complete pull request. Okay. Alright, so if anyone wants to review that, you can do that. Nice. So we've added that support. That should be good. One of the things I'm looking here in our current architecture is that we don't really have a good separation of concern here. If you look here in our metadata store here, we actually get stuff. We have our, create an experiment sample. We create an experiment. We set everything we want on this one. We add it to the database, and we return the ID so we can use it later. And that's all good, but we are wrapping it around an MLOps context like this here that we create inline here. So it makes it very difficult to, for example, mock away the database for tests. It makes it very difficult for us if we want to, just in general, it makes it very difficult for us. Especially if we want to use like a memory cache for integration test, it makes it completely impossible to do that. So that's something we have to look at. We don't really have dependency injection in this solution because it's a console class library. I'm not thinking I'm going to solve it right now, but I do want to think about how we will solve this. Yeah, exactly. And that's, I mean, that's fine, honestly. I don't mind it opening up a new connection. We could use the same context. That's completely fine. But it's possible that each of these calls may be completely different. And it may take a very long time from like creating experiment to logging metrics, right? So let's say we train a model for like 2 hours. We create the experiment in the beginning, and then we log metrics at the end. So we may have a 2-hour gap in between there. So it definitely, I think, makes sense to keep each separate operation on its own DB context. I think that's fine. And we definitely, we do probably want to do some kind of repository pattern here, or use services instead, because right now we are not mocking this away completely as we want to. It's a good start here. Yeah, that's something to think about for sure, and I think that would probably been done here. So for example, we have our extension methods here that allows us to wire up these things here with a connection string, and we could inject something in this one here, in a constructor here, like a factory, for example, I guess, where you could fetch a DB context if needed, and then we can inject that away. That's actually a pretty good idea, John. That would be a low-hanging fruit for sure, where we inject the repository instead, I guess. We can call it repository. And then the repository itself will create a DB context, right? Let's see. Actually, I guess you can create. So let me see if I'm thinking about this correctly. We would inject something here, right? Service of some sort, or repository, factory, and then the factory would, instead of doing this here, we would have the factory dot create open connection or create DB context. Is that what you're thinking? I probably didn't explain that very well. I just realized. Alright. Well, you still got it because it was your idea, so good. I like the idea. I think that's better because I do want us to test this more. Like right now we have no integration tests, and we have very few unit tests on our SQLite and our SQL Server implementation, and that's not very acceptable going forward. So let's do that. Let's play around with that idea a bit here. So in our case here, we would need some kind of repository here. Let's add the new. Actually, we can do it in the storage, I think. Let's add a new class. Do you want to call it repository factory, maybe? Or a DB context factory? Naming is hard. I think a DB context factory is probably more explanatory, so we're going to probably use that instead as a name. We can rename it if you agree or disagree. And this one is going to be internal sealed. Exactly, yeah. Well, I got you there at least. DB context factory, so that should be good. Alright, and we'll go ahead and create an interface for this. Interface. I'll keep it in the same file for now because it's going to be small. IDB context factory, right? It's all good. And what this will do is just create a repo, right? So we probably have a method here called public, in our case mlops db context. Yep, that makes sense, I think. And we probably want to add an interface on that one as well, to be honest. But let's do that actually real quick here. Because right now we don't have an interface on this one, so let's do that. Because then we can mock away all this fun stuff here. I like that. Now comes the question though, is should I keep building interfaces in the same class, or should I create a separate class for it? I'm always torn when it comes to that, because when it comes to internal interfaces, I'm generally happy to keep them in the same class. When it comes to public interfaces, I keep them in a separate project. That's kind of what I usually do. But we'll go ahead and do this for now. We may want to separate this out later. In our case, we only care about these. And remove these bits. Okay, good. And we're missing a component here. Okay, so that should be fine though. This should be able to be an internal interface, I think. I don't think we need to make this external, public in this case. But now it is internal. I'm sure these will also want to be internal. Or no? Oh, sorry. It's the other interface. Thank you for the catch there. Alright, good. This is why we have people on the stream helping out here, so I don't make too many mistakes here. Alright, so now we can return interface instead. That's much better. And we can call this create DB context. And we can return something here instead. And the only thing here is with the pass in a connection string, but that's fine. And by doing this, we can mock this away later, which is going to be useful. Yep, that would be useful. So we'll put that in the interface here. Let's fill this out a bit. And put that here. And we are going to use this, I think, yeah, in a public one. So we have to actually make this interface public because we're using it in a public extension method here. That's okay. So this one can be internal, but the interface needs to be public. So we do need to add some comments here because we have warnings as errors. So factory to create DB context. Okay. Creates DB context based on name. Okay. What is the issue with that? Is it because, okay, this one is of course, okay, and that's going to ripple down of course, because this one is internal, that's public. Okay. So now this one needs to be public. Alright. It's still internal class, so we should be fine there. So call it SQL Server DB context. Experiments. I'm gonna be lazy with the names here. Metrics. Hyper. There's runs. Okay, and then we have the same issue here, I'm sure, because yeah, yes. I don't want that though. I want this to be internal. Okay, well that's interesting. So the issue is running into right now is that when we're making our interfaces public, those entities on the interface are also forced to be public, and I don't want that because these currently are internal and they're not exposed to the user for good reasons, and I definitely don't want to open them up to being public neither. So that's not going to be an option, but this should definitely be possible. I'm not sure why this is arguing with me. Like I should be able to have an internal interface here as well. So that's funny. And it all starts here because this one is internal, this one's public. Let's see if I do this internal. Can I use it where I want to use it? Because where I want to use it is here, I think. Because I eventually want to pass it in here, right? This is going to cry now. Not crying yet. Okay, that's good. So we may be out of the woods here. Because I want the context factory. I don't want it to be a property. I want it to be a field. Thank you. Okay. Okay, that's good. And in theory, I should be able to pass this in here by saying just new DB context factory. Like that. Okay, good. I think that actually is good. I'm happy with that. Okay. Look at the ice. We survived so far. Alright, so now we have to start using it. We have our interfaces set up. It doesn't? Well, we need it here. Right, Sean? So when we actually create the DB context, we do need to pass in the connection string. So for example... Oh, in this extension, you're right. Good catch. Thank you. That's awesome. I would have missed that completely if you didn't tell me that. Thank you. That's even better. Okay, so we can skip that. And skip that. Alright, so this is going to be much better. So now we need to kind of massage this implementation a bit so we can get this working. And I think what you were saying, Sean, as well, and your idea from the beginning was something like this, right? Where we'll do context factory, create DB context, connect, and ooh, we still need connection string actually. We need it because that's the way we're going to pass it in here. So we do need it actually, because the user will pass that in to the extension. Okay, we can pass it into that context factory. That's fair. That's probably a better idea. So what we're saying is that we're still passing it in here, right? Let's see. We still need to pass it in here. Yeah, let's try that. We can definitely try it. I think it makes sense that it's confined in the same class. I actually don't mind that at all. I think that's a good idea. So let's try that a bit. Go ahead and add it back. So what we're saying here is that what if we pass it in here instead? Yeah, it makes sense to me as well. I like that. So we'll do that here. We'll create a CTOR here instead. And this one's can take connection string. And that will take away the whole need for this one, to be honest. And this one. Yep, I like that. That's clean. And that kind of, as you said as well, it encapsulates the logic here, which I like a lot. So thank you for the suggestion. Cool. Alright, so if you do that, let's see, we have that. That's all good. Go back here now. We can then start doing this instead here, right? In an idea at least. Alright, so we need to add iDisposable to our DB context if that's going to work. Otherwise we can't have that in the using statement. So we'll go ahead and do that. iDisposable. Okay. And honestly, there's nothing we need to dispose more than just saying iDisposable here, so that should be fine. but we do need for it interface as well, I guess. Okay. There we go. That looks better. Alright, so now we have the DB here. Now we need to also expose other methods here. And I honestly think we can just go ahead and do this here, because there's no need for us to... actually we can't do that, but we'll go ahead and add those methods we need here, which is good, because we mock them away later. So we need to have a method for saving here, and we'll just pass in the base here. Yeah, I think you're right there. So we need to go ahead and add a method for save change as sync here. We'll do that, and that will create itself here, and go ahead and add that here. Alright, and this one can go straight to the base right now. We don't need to do anything here really. We may later, but for now we are just going to let this do its thing. This is most likely a sync method. Okay. I like that. It's good. Alright, perfect. So that gives us back that. It looks much better already. So now we could definitely mock that away if we needed to. And the cool thing as well is that we can actually allow our mock to create a real MLOps builder, but just with different storage. Let's see how that would work. So the thing that I want to look at right here as well is the fact that right now we configure the builder here on configuring. And that's all good. But I wonder if it makes more sense to pass that in. Let me finish what I was doing first and then go back to this, and I'll tell you why I think we should probably move this around a bit. So we should now be able to copy this one line over and have all these things working as expected. Okay. This will allow us to create some unit tests as well, which is going to be sweet. 2 more. Oh, sorry. Okay. Perfect. Fix that syntax. Let's see if it's built first. Hopefully so. Let's change the music a bit. I'm tired of that music. Happy music, sure. Let's see what it has. Try that. Okay, so that builds perfect. So I think this is exactly what we want here, right? We have implemented a dbconst factory. You can create a db context. Some really cool stuff there. Perfect, thank you guys. So let's push that change to the same PR, because that may as well just go into it as well. So we change that over, we added some interfaces here, and a factory. And we modified this one to use that instead. Okay. So let's look at the thing that I want to look at real quick before starting adding unit tests for this as well. So one of the things that we have an issue with right now is, let's say we want to add integration tests for this, and let's actually do that. Let's add some integration tests for this and see what issues we'll run into, and see if we can solve them. So right now we only have a unit test project, and that barely has any unit tests in it, and we definitely want to add that too. Let's say we want to add integration test project here as well. So we'll say unit test, just to get the... Did I get the right one? Unit test, C#, perfect. And not the framework. Okay, this one. We'll say mlops.net SQL Server integration tests. What? Are you saying no to .NET Framework, Sean, or no to tests? Or both? Or neither? Oh, even worse. Nice catch. Are you sure you don't Visual Basics? I don't want to write that. Okay, there we go. Right one. What would I do without you on the line today? I would do a lot of things wrong for sure. Integration tests. Spelling looks good there. No L's missed, I think. And it's C#, unit test project. Good to go. Alright. So what we'll go ahead and do here is, first of all, just add some simple stuff that we want from other ones here. We'll go ahead and add all these references, honestly, because we need mock eventually, and actually we don't need mock, but we need fluid assertions. So copy this over, because I do need this. And this, okay. So if we add a unit test here, let's see. If we add an integration test, sorry. Let's add an integration test for this. Let's call it integration test for the SQL Server metadata store. So this is going to be testing, creating experiments and stuff like that. Tests. Okay. If we do that, let's see. What can we do here? Okay. First of all, a test that we probably want to do, and let's, I guess, make a test here. Test class, I guess it's called in that. And test method. So if we do that, let's say we want to add a simple test here. What's the simplest test we can do here that would work? SQL Server, and we want to do this class right here. The simplest test we can do is just create an experiment. That would be a simple test here. And I want to make an integration test, so I want to make sure that we actually create the server test as well. The experiment. So let's test this method here. Should create an experiment. And let's see why that's an issue right now. Arrange, act. And I like to do this just to keep some separation of what we're doing. Assert. So what's the issue right now? Well, let's get the suit here. So the unit test here. Okay, so to do that, we need to open up internals here for this. We need to make sure it's a visible internal for this test. I think it should be. Oh. Yeah, the project reference definitely needed, but we still need to open up it for internal visible for our test as well. Because right now it's not visible for internal, external. It is for unit test, but not for integration tests. Because we're using a lot of internals here. But you're also right that we need to add a reference. So let's do that. We can actually copy whatever we have in the unit test project, because that's going to be the same. Okay. Alright, so that should be able to provide us with this. Yep, okay. So if you look at this now, what are we having here? Come on. There you go. What does it take? Well, it takes a context factory, which is great. And in our case, we want to have the same. So we want the real thing here, honestly. Because we want to test integration tests all the way to the database. So in our case, we want the same thing here. I'm blanking here. DB context, right? Factory. Okay. And we would pass in a connection string to this one as well, in theory. So in theory, this would be a connection string right here. So what is the issue with this? Well, the issue with this is that the first thing we'll do here is that it will create an MLOps-DB context, and that MLOps-DB context is going to use SQL Server directly. And the issue with that is going to require a database. Exactly. So that's the thing, right? We want to be able to configure this to use the memory cache for Entity Framework instead. But we can't do that if we are using a static method like this, or a method we can't necessarily get to. Because what we want to do here is we want to do use memory, I think, right? Is it here? Use memory? Memory cache instead. So instead of using SQL Server, we want to use memory cache so we can at least get this tested. Yes, exactly, yeah. We're not working with ASP.NET Core application right now. Web app. So we don't really have access to memory injections or DI containers. So we can't necessarily do that exactly, but we can do very similar to what you are suggesting, which is getting this method here. No worries, that's good. But that's actually what we want to do, though. The same method. But the issue right here is that we're creating this one ourselves here. And it may make more sense to pass in the DB context options builder instead to have access to it. Just like we do right here, we may want to do that as well. So that will be passing it in here, and that will be passing it into the DB context factory, and it will be passing it in here. I think that's kind of what we want to do here. So what I'm thinking is, if we go back one step here, is that we would, instead of passing in a connection string, we would configure it here instead. Where do you go? Where do you go? Right here. So instead of passing in a connection string to our DB context factory, what we instead do is create options builder here. Builder. And have to spell correctly if you want to do this. And we create, what is it called? This one right here. So we'll create a chain method, new DB context options builder. We'll say use SQL Server and go ahead and use this connection string right here. And like this, we can just pass this instead here instead. So options. Because I don't think it's a build method actually. And I think that will allow us to kind of construct this ourselves and use memory cache in an integration test or whatever we want to do without having to be tied to that. So I will say options builder here. Or just options. And we'll change restore here. Can remove this baby and add options. Okay. Does that make sense to you all? If not, let me know. I think it will at least alleviate some of our problems that we're gonna have with testing this otherwise. Options. Okay. Come on. Perfect. So instead of doing the configure here, what we'll instead do here is just say options. Can we do that, or is it just can we do that? Actually, that has to be an override. This has to be this, so it would be base, I think. Base on configuring. I think we have to do that, right? I think that's what you want to do. What did we do before? hoping that I will set it on the base, but I'm assuming that right now. Were you saying that this may be enough? Oh, this was removed. I think that setting on the base would do it, but the issue right here is that okay, I think this is probably what I want to do, because they're passing in an options builder to this one on configuring, and we want to make sure we set that to it. To be honest, I'm not really sure here, so this is something we have to explore a bit. If you know how to do this properly, let me know. But I think okay. Okay, we'll try this. I'm a little hesitant here, I'll be honest, but we can try this in integration test, and I think we can kind of see what this is set to afterwards. So I'm gonna leave it for now if we don't have a better suggestion, and we'll write this test here and see what happens. So now at least we should be able to do something like this instead. Options builder, and in our case here we need to install these packages here as well for entity framework, so we can access to these methods. So we'll at least get this for now into our test project. We don't need a tools one, I think, so we'll skip that. And we'll go back to fetch the method here. Where'd you go? Something like this should work. Okay, and instead of that we should do use memory cache, and we'll call this ammo ops as a DB. Okay. Oh, you want an iMemory cache. Okay, so how does this work? I never actually used the memory cache in its framework. Let's look at it. What is it taking? It's taking an iMemory cache. Okay. That makes sense, I guess. So you can actually get access to it there, and it adds to it. And would that be... what kind of type is that? How do we get access to that? That can be, I think, a lot of things, right? In memory caches. Can I do that? What do you want from me? Options accessor. Ugh, too many options here. Okay, let me Google this to the docs instead, because this is going to take too much time otherwise. Use AF4 memory cache. Let's figure this out. I just want to pass in a cache. Okay, I think I want this one honestly. I don't want to start writing a lot of things for this though. Has anyone used memory cache for Entity Framework before? And kind of knows what we should be doing here? I'll just gonna copy paste this part here to get some options working at least. Actually, this will be fine. Let's try that. The only thing that can happen is that we fail, and you will laugh at me. And that is okay. I can take that. Alright, so now we have a cache. Alright, cool. So in theory now, this should be working properly. We have set up our store. So if we do like experiment ID, create experiment async here, give the name test. We'll do that now, and we'll make this async task. And wait. Well, we should get an experiment ID now, and I should be able to fetch that experiment in my cert here and make sure it's been created properly. So I should be able to do experiment and wait. Cert get experiment. Actually, it's not available. And I should be able to pass in my name here, so test. And the first thing I want to check here, and I think I'll add some more search series, but experiment should not be null. And I'll check some more reasonable stuff later, but let's try this first and see if this works, because we may have some issues with getting this all wired up here, so I don't want to write too much before that's tested. Let me know if that looks okay or not to you guys. If you have any other suggestions or things you want to change or add, definitely all ears for that. Okay, debug that test a bit. Alright, let's see here. So what happens if I go into this one right now? If we... Oop, that broke. That broke. Okay, so what was the issue here? That completely failed. No database. Oh, okay. So we run into the issue that I was kind of expecting almost, that the onConfiguring method is not properly working, and because we haven't set those options properly. So when we went in here and here, this is not working, which is, I guess, expected, because it looks really funny. What we'll try though is, let's try to pass this all the way in, this option instead, just to see if this works. And if not, we can try something else. But yeah, it didn't use our options as expected, and that's causing things to break here. And that's not what we want. Okay. It's all good. Go in here. Ah, come on, failed again. Same reason. Yeah, okay, it's the same reason. Okay. So that'd be fun. That's fun. We have to figure out a better way than this to configure our database right now. It must be a better way of doing this though. On configuring definitely is an override. Can't you set them in options somewhere here? I feel like that's a better way of doing it. Where is it? I feel like we can do this as well, right? Ah, yes. I feel like we can do this. Can we do this? There we go. I think I got it. There we go. I think we can remove this completely and do this instead. I'm almost certain this is going to work. But this is why we have integration test, so we can try this. We should be able to pass it into the base DB context here as an options instead. Okay, let's get that going. It's all good. Come on. Okay, still failed. Let me add a breakpoint actually right where that is, because something is not working as expected here. Okay. So how does this look right now? Options is here. What kind of options do we have here? Extensions. So we have a memory cache that we decided to use. And there's nothing in it, that's good. Do I need to set SQL Server as well as an option? That's what I'm wondering. Oh, is it this one? The base one works just fine, but it fails on the database created step here. What if I loop over that? That's interesting. So if I go and skip this, then it probably works. Or not. Let's go back to the docs. I think we probably want to also add a database provider here. That's what I'm thinking. I wonder if we need to do that and actually do like use memory cache, use SQL Server. Is that something we need to do? So is it going to use the memory cache in that case or not? Let's try. I'm a little bit curious about this. Nope, that didn't work. Yeah, because the connection string is incorrect. Okay, let's Google this a bit. Use memory for tests. What does Stack Overflow say here? I'm definitely missing something here. I thought you could use the memory cache as like a testing backend, honestly. But that doesn't seem to be the case, which I'm a little bit surprised about. I really thought that that's the case here. But maybe not. query caching. Okay, so it's just query caching. And that's not what we want in this case. Note that change in memory cache can use it. Okay. I guess I have to look at it further, I think, because I was under the impression that you can use memory cache for testing purposes. So kind of swap away the SQL Server on the backend to memory cache. But it doesn't seem to be the case that that's possible, which I'm slightly surprised about, because that would have been a really cool feature to do. But now it seems that you can't swap it out at all. And do we have a NuGet package for that? Yeah. So, Sean, what are you suggesting? We have a container with SQL Server in it, and our integration tests run against that container. Is that the thought you're having? That's a good thought. Yeah. I actually haven't worked much with that approach on testing, which is most likely a very good approach, honestly, because we could pull that. Yeah. So how would I work in a GitHub Actions? We would pull down and start a container on our Ubuntu test service, or we would have these containers running maybe in an AKS cluster in Azure, and the tests can always kind of hit them if they need to. I guess the simplest one will be the second approach here, where it can always be hit and running. I'm trying to think of how we'll set that up though, properly. We have SQL Server installed locally here, so we can definitely test it locally. That's not an issue. I got SQL Server Management Studio open here, so we can do that. I guess what we can do right now is we can actually write integration tests though for this, and we can figure out later how we want to run them in our CI pipeline. Is that fair? I think so. That begs the question though, if we actually want to do the refactor that we did right now to pass in the options or not, or if we just are happy with the current approach. Because what we did was we changed this one here. Instead of passing in a connection string, we did that. So since we don't need to mock that away anymore, I feel like we could go back to the current approach with just passing in a connection string and building that in the context. I think that's probably a better approach for now. Should I go ahead and revert those changes and we can keep building integration tests? That would be those two. I think so. Barring any objections, I will do that. Which will be these three files here. And we'll go ahead and add some tests here. Alright. Let's add some tests. So we don't need this anymore in that case. We do need a connection string here instead. And what is the local connection string format again? And this one we can definitely change later. Let's see. So we have a database here, or a server definitely locally. And I've created a database, but we can let it create itself, honestly. That is going to be done by itself. And just have to figure out the connection string format again. I think like server, and then this is perfect. swap this to, I think we can use localhost here honestly right now. And let's call this mnet ops tests. Okay. So let's see if this runs here. Connection string. So let's run this one. And at least see if it runs against my local one. And in that case, we can start adding some tests for this, and we can add a category called integration test SQL server or something like that. And in a future issue, we can figure out how we want to run them in our CI pipeline or locally using containers. Okay. And that failed miserably. Okay, it said value can't be null, but I passed in the value, so let's run that again and see what's wrong here. Yeah, I'm using a trusted connection though, so I don't think we need username and password. It should be Windows authentication that should be playing here, right? Or no? I think at least, right? Server localhost. Oh, but I do wonder, we are not setting it yet, right? This one is still null. Ah, okay. I think I need to swap this over first here. You're way ahead of me, guys. It's like the perfect pair progging or mob progging session here when you're like always looking over my shoulder and finding things that I miss. Super helpful. Okay. Let's look at this. Let's just go in here and look real quick, make sure this is working. So now I'm wondering if this is going to hit or not. Okay, so now this is getting hit, perfect, just what we want to. And it's doing something. Is it creating a database or not? Okay, ensure created. Refresh. Perfect, look at that. So it went ahead and created it because we didn't have it yet. That's awesome. That looks like we have at least wired that up properly. And look at that. Would you look at that? Fantastic. Let's get back to our test here and make sure that we can actually get this one here. Oh, that'd be kind of cool actually, a live share. You're right. And it passed. Nice. That's a good idea actually, you two. A live share on Visual Studio, so you can all kind of be in there and edit as well. That's kind of a nice idea. I want to look at how that's possible. If you can, like, can you share a link to your live share maybe? I don't know. Alright, so you probably will crash it, but that is fine. Alright, test category. Let me add some quick tests here. This is perfect, because I mean we caught some bugs already here. Integration test. I'm going to call it integration test SQL Server now, because we don't want these to run currently in our CI pipeline, because that's going to break. But we'll go ahead and add some more tests, and then what we'll do is go ahead and merge this or get a review. How's it going? Good to have you on the line, Doda. Okay, create, run, async. And Sean, if you have some suggestions on how to run this in a container, by the way, it would be awesome. Good. Well, I'm glad you're here. Because I actually haven't had much experience running SQL Server as a container for unit test or integration test. It'll be really interesting to see your approach there and how you would do that. Okay, we don't need this. But I like the idea a lot. Okay, let's do this. Let's go ahead and move the connection string to a variable here instead. Const, actually. And connection string. We actually, Sean was suggesting that we would start doing our integration tests on a container, so we can hit them like that, and I think that's a great idea, because we can't have SQL Server installed on our Ubuntu CI pipelines, and that would really allow us to run some of these tests properly, especially things like this. Okay. So things we want to check here is that experiment ID should, yeah, probably, yeah. It's definitely something that would be really cool to look into. Let's rename this to the ID so we can use it. Alright. So we'll go ahead and copy this. Yeah, I like the arrange act assert because it gives me a good overview of where I'm doing stuff. But given when then is also a pattern I think that is very commonly used and may also be preferred. Honestly, we can do this here. Test. So we should have two create experiments here. We should have the create run async. Where are you? We have another one somewhere. Sure. Where's the other method there? I know we have another one, create run, which creates the experiment for me, but oh, it's on the lifecycle catalog. Okay, that's fine. Sorry if I'm thinking at the same time here, trying to figure out where things are. Okay, so experiment ID. So we create an experiment first, then we create a run, and by doing that, we should be able to get a run here with this ID. I never used Wallaby actually. I don't know what that is. Definitely post a link in the chat if you want to, because I would be curious to know what that is. And run ID should be ID. Okay. Let's try to run these two here and see if they pass. We may have to clean up some data honestly because... Oh nice, okay. I'll check that out later, Doda. Thank you. Yeah, this is failing right now. Good, which is good. Because we can't have two duplicate names here. So it's failing because... or maybe it doesn't fail because of that actually. Where is it failing? Oh, because we have two. And we don't want that. Ooh, we have a bug here. So that's something we definitely want to fix at some point. But first thing we want to do here is... yeah. We want to clean things up here. Exactly, yeah. And honestly, we can do the teardown method instead here. Is it the test teardown? It's called test cleanup. Okay, so we definitely want to go ahead and clean up some stuff here. Yeah. Let's see how we want to go ahead and do this. So we don't really have a good access method right now for this. In this case, SQL Server is going to be local. That's the idea. You can use it in Azure, I'm sure, as well, but this is going to be local SQL Server, or like, remote somewhere. It's not going to be in Azure itself. But I'm trying to think of the best way of doing this, because move the context to a local object in a class and use that for cleanup. Clarify that a bit more. What are you envisioning there? Yeah, possibly. I'm gonna do one thing actually when I'm thinking here. We can move this over real quick here. You should be able to move here instead. I actually don't need a mock actually. This is an integration test, so I don't need a mock. I just need what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to remove everything on the database, and I can either do that by adding what's it called, transactions, and we can roll back to transaction, but I don't want to go all the way there. I just want access to the context here to do these things. And I wonder if what I can do is instead do this. What if I can definitely run a stored procedure, I can run SQL, but what if I just do something like this? Oh, create DB context, let's see that real quick here. I'm playing around with this right now. I'm not sure if this is going to lead somewhere, but I want to see where this is going. Okay. Context factory. Okay, so we have access to all my DB sets here, right? So what I could do is just do clear on these. I think that would work. So I would be able to do something like this. Can I? Or set them to empty lists. Usually should be a clear method here. Ah, yeah, drop DB. Even better. Drop DB is an idea. I like that, Sean. How do I get access to that properly from here? Yeah, it does, but it's pretty quick, I think. It's a very, very small database. It's not going to take a lot of time to create it. But exactly, yeah. Can I do this though? So I don't have access to that one necessarily, but I could. I think, honestly, let's try this real quick here. I'm using no testing framework. Oh, I'm using MS Test right now as my testing framework. That's the only thing I'm doing. I'm not using anything else here. So I could expose the database in my interface if I wanted to. I could expose it here, but I wonder if I want to do that. Because I could call ensure deleted here. That would be something. If I expose that, but I don't want to expose that. Let me do this. Let me go ahead and expose a method for running SQL commands. Because if you do that, what we could do is just, as you said, Sean, just do drop database there in that command itself, and that will completely wipe it out. Is that, or that's one option of doing it. Other options doing it is exposing the database through the context, but that I think is a little bit more risky and not necessarily what I want to do. Any thoughts there? A third option is, of course, to set all the lists to empty, but by doing that you have to remember all the time when you add a new property to it or DB set to it to remove that, and that's going to be more work, I think, than it's worth. So what I'm testing is creating experiments properly, or creating things properly in a database. So for example here, we have a database, and when I run a test, I, for example, I create experiments. And as you can see right now, get this working here, we see that we have, for each test, we're adding an experiment right here. And then experiments then have runs, and they have metrics and hyperparameters and those kind of things. And before each test, I want to make sure I clean this up properly. I don't want it to keep becoming bigger and bigger and all those things. So I think I want to honestly execute the command here to remove that. Yeah, let's do it simple. Let's do it simple now. I think to get somewhere, let's do it simple. So I think what we'll do here is just do this. I think we can do this. Yeah, I definitely like it to keep it simple. I think we can do this. There should be a clear method, so I'm not surprised that it's there. Oh, okay, that's fine. Alright, so experiments. Yeah, it's a data set. It's the weekend as well. But can't I do like some of this? Remove range experiments. I feel like this should be possible, right? And the same thing for the rest. Do you think that would work? I feel like that should work. We'll try it for at least for sure and see if it works. Yeah, that's the other alternative as well, and that's what kind of was alluding to before. Is by doing that, we can even actually drop the whole thing as well instead of just chunking table, and that may be cleaner, honestly. I'll go ahead and do that because the thing what I want to do is I want to be able to. I don't want it to add new stuff. Like if we add new properties or new tables, I don't want us to have to update this table completely. That's going to be annoying. Okay, Dota, what do you have for me? I'm not sure if I'm following this one. I don't know if it's going to be helpful for this specific one, but let me read a bit later. I don't think it's going to be helpful for this one here. What we're trying to do right now. But thank you for sharing it though. Definitely want to look at it a bit later. Alright. So what we want to do here, if we're going to do this, is, as Nura said here, we want to do public void, what's called? Int execute SQL command strings SQL this base execute database. There we go. Okay, there we go. So return. What is it wrong with this one right now? Interesting. Data table, remove range. Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to do before. That is definitely doable. But now we're going with this approach. But why is it not working? It's obsolete. Okay. Alright, I'm not doing that. It's an obsolete method. It's going to be removed at some point. We don't want to risk that. So we're going to go back to that approach that you said already, Nura. I think that's the easiest thing to do right now, because this is taking much longer than I wanted to do. I think what we're doing right here is going to be working. So I'm just going to keep working on this approach here, and we'll run it, and that should be fine. Runs. And we have only, I think, 2 more tables left here, and then we're good. We're gonna have metrics, and honestly we can just do metrics. Okay. Well, I think that's a compliment, if that's something. I do love everyone on the stream. You guys are awesome. You're very patient, which I like. Metrics, runs. The best part, I think, going stream with you all is that I always learn something new from all of you. And like, you know, when you're working on your client site or whatever you're working on, you get kind of you get contained in whatever domain they're working on and whatever they want you to do. So doing this gets you exposed to more stuff. Hyper parameters. Yeah, we want to be careful with that as well, but we do want some extractions so we don't are completely down. Alright, so we got that done. So now what I want to do though is I'm wondering if we want to do this in the... We want to at least truncate this table now before we do anything else, because right now it's not going to work. So I want to go ahead and execute a new query here. We'll do truncate. We'll do delete from run. Runs. Oh, it's called runs. That's not good. Okay, I don't like that. We'll change that later. I want it to be in singular. That would make more sense to me. But that's okay. All right, so now we've done that. Let's run these 2 tests here, and debug. Run them again, make sure they work. That should at least work better now, hopefully. Okay, we don't care about that, go away. We don't care about that, please go away. Do you have a UI made? Yes. Oh, sorry, I missed that question. Thank you for that question. No, not yet. Well, that's what we're going to try to build, and we're trying to do that in Blazor, I think, at some point. So that's exactly what's going to come down the line eventually. Okay, that runs again. Let's run it again. Let me check this real quick. So we want to add like a Blazor front end at some point here. Okay. What are you disagreeing with? Perfect. Got teardown, nice. No, not necessarily. It's just we're building things that make sense for us in the beginning. So it's going to be a 2-prone approach, right? So right now we're building the SDK, so the NuGet packages that we're going to use for managing the lifecycle of our machine learning model. And we're not doing domain-driven design or anything like that right now. We're just building the foundation layers so we can track everything. And once we know what we want to track, because this is kind of experimental, we don't really know what to track yet. Once we know that we have a pretty stable API, we can then add a UI on top to that. For us, it's more important to track what we want to, create the APIs for and track than how we want to display it, if that makes sense. Because we don't really need a UI, to be honest. A UI would be nice and fancy, and we definitely want that at some point, but we don't need it. Alright, I hope that makes sense. And I hope you stick around on the streams coming up the next few weeks and months here until we get to the UI portion, and that may make more sense then. Yeah, it's more data dependent application, I would say, for sure. Alright, so those tests run. They are now removing stuff, so that's awesome. So let's run create some for 2 last tables here, and then we will put this up into our place of we want it. So I want to check create metric, log metric. Well, Dota, we actually have a UI issue already. Like we have an issue in our repo. So if you want to look at it, if you want to, but we're going to build a Blazor. I think React is awesome, and that'll be cool to do. But we're going to build with Blazor just because something we want to get into more and work with. And I think it'll be a little easier for someone like me without too much front-end experience working in Blazor. But we would love input, so if you want to help out with Blazor, then definitely come and join us. Alright. So we have a run now. And now I want to log a metric. So this is going to be the range now instead. And we'll have an act here. So what we want to do is... Yeah, we all have to learn Blazor, I think. So can you just join us to do that? Sure, we can look at which issue would make sense for you. Metric ID. Okay, so log metric async. So in this case, what we want to do here is we want to log the run ID. So run ID. We want to log a metric, and that could be accuracy, for example. Let's call it F1 score in our case, because it's easier to spell for me. And we'll say it's going to be 79. And what is it missing? Oh, yep, sorry. That's why. Okay. So we're saying that our F1 score here is going to be 0.78 for our run, and hopefully that's going to log it for a specific run as well. Oh, nice. Well, we have some AWS issues coming up, so if you want to look at that, that'd be awesome. We want DynamoDB support, and we want S3 bucket support for our model repository. So that could be something you want to look at, if to be honest. Okay. So now we should be able to do metrics. We'll do our first here, and the metric here should not be null. Metric name here should be F1 score, and finally metric name, the value should be 78. Right? Does it make sense? Okay. I don't have Discord, but we do Tuesday and Saturday time streams. I think the schedule is up on Twitch here. Tuesdays and Saturdays at 10 AM Eastern time. I think actually creating a Gitter channel for the GitHub repo though, so that may be something anyone wants to join into. Okay, we have an issue here. Source, okay. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, let's debug that one and see what's going on here. Something we can fix. Okay, got a metric going here. Okay, so that's fine. It seems like the run here is the issue. Okay, it's null. I thought get my run should populate that. Actually, that's fine though. I mean, seriously, we do want AWS. This is not like a Azure only project. We already have issues for it. If you look at this, I will put them in the repo here. Like we have DynamoDB support, for example. This one is a good issue if you want to look at. I may also look at it myself, so I can't promise I won't take it from you. But we have S3 bucket support here as well. So we want to add like mlops.net AWS storage provider as well. No worries, but yeah, I definitely want to add more support for that. So if you are interested in learning more about that or doing that, definitely. Alright, so here's the issue. We're not getting the run with that, so we should get metrics instead here. That would make more sense, that's why. We have another method further up the chain that will do this properly. But not right now. Okay. Okay. And in our case, you're going to be the first one here. Okay. That should pass now. Let's run that. Hopefully that works. Okay, perfect. That passed. So we're good there. We have some tests now for this. I'm liking this a lot. I'm trying to think of what makes sense now here. Got some integration tests going. What else do we have here? Set training time async, that would be good as well. But that's okay right now. So one thing. I think that's okay right now. Let's push that up. Actually, let's create the last one. We can't be lazy here. Don't want to be lazy. We have one more method test here. There's an existing pipeline, yeah. It's a GitHub Actions pipeline for CI pipeline. It runs integration tests as well right now, but only those that doesn't depend too much on other things like SQLite. So we need to fix that. Sure, definitely have a look at that. We can talk about that later if you want to. Okay. Set training time, async, ID, new time span. Let's call this 5 minutes. Okay. Training time. Cool. Alright, awesome. I will have a look at that just a bit later. Thank you for wanting to contribute. That's awesome. Appreciate that a lot. Get run. There's also examples, an example solution by the way, if you want to kind of explore a bit what we're trying to do here from like a higher picture perspective. Okay. Run. Run training time. Yeah, there should be an example catalog with an example solution. You can look at that if you wanted to, and that should give you a good idea. We're trying to add to it all the time, so if there's something missing there, that's something that we will want to add. Alright. Run tests. Perfect. Alright, let's push this up, and then I want to elaborate on the issue we have. I think we have an existing issue of running these tests, or add an issue for running the containers, or something similar. So we don't forget that. Okay. That's good. Added integration test for SQL Server implementation. Not yet, no. So this is going to be actually not building the solution. It's going to be probably building a container with a SQL Server in it that we can call from our tests. And then I can get that running in my Azure subscription, for example, or we can try to get it working on the Ubuntu client. But I think it probably makes sense to makes sense to investigate that a bit more, what people usually do. I think Sean had some more experience with that, or some thoughts on that. But I think what we want is just like a SQL Server container. So it should only have SQL servers installed on it, and we should be able to call that from our test directly. Or maybe it's that we actually want to test and the SQL Server on it. We have to think about that a bit more. I'll add an issue for it, and we can look at that together later. Okay. So let's look at its PR real quick here. Cool, that's great. Definitely another stream we want to look at that, or if you want to look at it as well, that'd be great. So 2 issues I want to add. One of them is the one we talked about now. So we want to add a SQL Server integration test to CI pipeline, and we can. What we want to do here, right, is, as you kind of mentioned, Doda and Sean, is may make sense to run these tests in a Docker container of sorts, or against container with SQL Server installed on it. Okay. Run our SQL Server tests in our CI pipeline, as it requires SQL Server. Okay, this is going to be a needs help issue, or wants help on it. So I was thinking that what we can do is we can add the discussion here, Doda, on this issue. If you have thoughts on how you want to do this, or anyone else for that matter, we can add some comments here on this one and make sure we can keep the discussion going here. Let's see if I can. We have we can do this. Please elaborate. I think what it makes sense to do is actually in the pipeline. It may make sense to build these integration test files and then copy them over to a place, have a Docker file that can post that together with SQL Server, and then kick it off. Oh, that would make sense actually, yeah. Cool, okay, that's a really nice one. I would look forward to working on that one, or someone else doing that. The second thing you want to do here is refactor SQLite implementation to use DB context factory. Similarly to the SQL Server implementation, it would be nice if we factored This is a good first issue actually, so Dota, if you want to look at this one, you can. This should be a pretty good first issue. The SQL Server implementation should have this, and it should be something to look at for sure. Alright, well, I'm gonna request review, but right now we have failing tests here. Yeah, it should be pretty straightforward once this one passes. And let me just fix these issues here. Seems like we have failing unit tests here, so let's run all the unit tests and make sure everything works here properly. And after that, I think it's gonna be time to get some lunch and sign up for the stream for the day. Anyone been to Music City Tech, by the way, that I'm wearing today? It's an awesome conference. I highly recommend it. Okay. Definitely check it out. It's in Nashville, Tennessee. That's what it's called, Music City Tech. Really fun. Okay, so we have a failing test. Which one is failing here? Why would it be failing? Ah. Really? Cool. I thought people stream more and more nowadays. Okay, so I thought I added this one here to not run these tests. I think the issue right now is... Ah, I see what the issue is. Okay. We have to update our CI pipeline here, because right now it's trying to run the SQL Server tests here, and we don't want to do that. So we have to update this file as well to not do that. We can do that real quick here. That is fine. And to do that, can I open the folder here? Here we go, open folder. If we go ahead and check our workflow file here, so this is our CI/CD pipeline here. We can open that up real quick here and modify this one to make sure it works for us, because right now it's trying to run our SQL Server integration tests too, and it may make sense that we actually add let's see, how do we really write this? I want to do an and as well. Is that 2 ands or? Okay, I can just do an and, I think. Okay, so that should be something like this, I guess. Test category does not equal that. It probably makes sense for us to add a unit test category, to be honest, instead, because now we're having multiple different integration tests here. Let's do this instead. Let's call it unit test and let's add a category for everything else here. Okay. So what I want to do here is I want to go through our test here and just kind of add unit test where it's needed. I think that'll be easier for us. Go to integration tests, because we don't have too many yet, so that's okay. And get 2 more projects here. Okay, we get quite a few actually in here. If you're not following me already, and if you like what you've seen today, definitely hit that follow button and you get notified when I'm online next time. And if you don't like what I'm seeing right now, I'm surprised you're still on the stream. But I appreciate it regardless. Alright, let's see. After that one, unit tests. Add unit tests to tons of these things. So ensure unit tests, category. Okay. Alright, let's see if the CI pipeline builds now. If it does, that will be fantastic. Hopefully that's the case. Because you can see here, they ran just before we added those integration tests. So I would assume that this will run now. But I'm not sure. So this is our current pipeline right here, as you can see. Building dependencies, unit test, integration test, publishing a package, NuGet package, pushing that to our local GitHub package repo, those kind of stuff. Come on. Good. Well, I'm glad I'm doing something right at least. Mostly thanks to you all guys on the stream, honestly. You're the ones adding so much good input and experience here. Super helpful. Okay, come on unit tests. I think they're running right now. They passed, perfect. And now integration tests are running, but remember the SQL Server integration tests are not running because we haven't added support for them yet. But the SQLite tests are running. Okay. I believe this is going to work. And pass. Let's look at it. Awesome. Alright, so this is passing. This is ready for review. And I want to make sure we can request some reviews from AJ and from other folks here, Daniel and Luis. And I think we'll... Actually, one thing I want to check now before... I know it's like, oh, I should stop streaming, but one thing that I saw that we want to fix here is the fact that I think we're adding duplicate experiments. If I look here, create experiment sync here, it's not checking if we have the experiment already existing or not, so it's creating it again. So I want to add an integration test for that real quick here to make sure we don't do that, 'cause otherwise we are adding failing functionality, and we don't want that. So let's add that real quick here. So what I want to do here is create experiment sync. So I want this one, but I want it twice more or less, and I want to make sure we don't do that. So create experiment sync does not add duplicates, right? So if I do create experiment sync first experiment, and if I do it again, I'm in the wrong place, and yeah, I'm in the wrong place. Sorry about that. SQL Server. Right here. So if I do this twice, I would expect my GUI to be the same. Twice. Should not add duplicates. So test. Do it again, test, right? So experiment ID, experiment ID 2. So what we're saying here is that I expect to get the same ID here, because if I create an experiment first one time with this given name called test, I want one ID. But if I try to create another experiment with the same name, I want the same experiment back. I don't want to create a duplicate one, I just want to get the same one because it's going to be unique. It's actually DMC free music, Dota. I know they're doing a crackdown right now. I'm using something called Pretzel Rocks, and that's what you get in the chat here. So it's telling you what I'm playing, and it's a completely stream safe music source. I like it a lot. It's useful. Alright. Yeah, it's really good actually. I like it a lot. Okay. So if I run this test right now, it's going to fail, I think. Let's try to run it, and then let's try to fix that so it passes. They have like a, so they have a, I think you can pay $5 a month, I think, and you will get rid of the chat messages, and you will get some other functionality where, you know, US attendees can, or audience can request songs. So I may get that, but right now I'm using the free version, which is a great one of course as well. Alright, so when we run this, we see it fails, which is expected. We see that we have different GUIDs here. So the first one created this GUID, and the second one created this GUID, and they're not the same, so it creates duplicates, and we don't want that. Cool. Bethesda's a nice place. So now we have to fix this, and the way to do that is by getting the experiment first before we do anything else. So experiment, get experiment, and we'll pass in a name here. If experiment existing. Is if experiment is null, so like if it don't exist, then we can go ahead and create one, but otherwise do nothing, because we don't do anything here, so we don't need to save a change outside. We'll keep that inside here. And actually we can probably just rename this to experiment, because that is fine. And okay, so that's good. So if experiment is, I'm getting coffee delivery here. If experiment here is null, we want to add that. But I think go back to what it was. It's fine. Save changes, and what I want to do here is return. Okay, experiment. And here I want to return existing experiments. Alright. Don't do that, please. Okay. So now we should have these tests passing. So let's go ahead and run these tests again and see if they pass. I think they should pass this time. Run. Did you fail again? Contains no elements, okay. And why is that? Do we have a first and single here? Oh, okay, it's requesting it. Okay, so I won't use that method because that sucks. So I will use my DB context here instead and just get it. First or default. There we go. That's going to work better. Let's run all tests here related to this. This is why you have integration tests, because otherwise it won't work. Perfect. Look at that. We have everything passing now, and we also make sure we don't have duplicates here. Alright, so we can push that change up there. And we're in business. Just because we have integration test now, we can test that. Fixed bug that created duplicate experiments. Cool. Alright, so with that, I think we are good for today. We have created this PR, so during these 2.5 hours of streaming, we have fixed an issue here. We have added support for SQL Server. We've added integration tests for this. We've opened 2 issues that we have to follow up on to run these tests in a pipeline and to do some other cool stuff. And at the end of the day here, we have added another NuGet package for people to use, and hopefully that'll be something that's useful. So everyone on the stream today, thank you very much for joining in today. It's been a blast as always. I had so much fun. If you want to join in, every Tuesday and Saturday I stream at 10 o'clock. So, well, thank you for joining. It's always been fun, right? And you've been here for a long time. It's crazy. You've been here for 2 hours in my stream. Thank you for that. But again, I'll catch you on Tuesday. You can find me on Twitter if you want to talk. And you have my Twitter handle right there. And just contribute if you want to. Have a fantastic weekend, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.